Today on Locked On Rockies, what to do about CJ Cron.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 5th day of July in the year 2022. I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Well, who the heck am I? Well, I'm just the guy that's been bringing you this Rockies podcast for a year and change now. Lifetime Rockies fan and someone that just absolutely loves this ball club through the ups and the downs. You can find more of what I do at paulfholden.com, but the best way to see what I do is follow me on Twitter at paulholden33, where you can see a lot more of what I do, including this wonderful show where we're talking Colorado Rockies baseball all the time. That's what we like to do. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode of Locked On Rockies is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Rockies listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On at checkout. Today on Locked On Rockies, what are we talking about? It's CJ Cron. I think easily the most interesting storyline for the Colorado Rockies right now is, what do the Rockies do with CJ Cron as the trade deadline is coming? CJ Cron is a stud, certified, bona fide. He is absolutely one of the most important Rockies pieces, if not the most important piece on the Rockies offense so far. Chris Bryant's return could signal a change in that, but let's be real. CJ Cron has done something that only two other Rockies have done before. According to the Rockies broadcast last night, I guess this is for first baseman. Sorry, this might have happened before. I misread the thing, but only two other first basemen in Colorado Rockies history have gotten 20 home runs before the All-Star break, and it's pretty good categories, or pretty good group to be in. Who is it? Well, it's Todd Helton and Andres the Big Cat Galarraga. Helton doing it in 2000, 2001, and 2003. Galarraga doing that in 94, 96, and 97. And now CJ Cron is the next Colorado Rockies first baseman to do that. So clearly the impact, CJ Cron is the best first baseman in Rockies history since Todd Helton. There's just not even any, this debate is over. CJ Cron has actually been one of the best signings, I would say, potentially in Rockies history for his impact of what he can do. If you're just going for what CJ Cron has done and his impacts on the team, the Rockies should have been, I wish they hit on CJ Cron a couple of seasons earlier, as we have talked about multiple times, especially because you add CJ Cron onto the competitive Rockies teams in the past, and you have a completely different looking Colorado Rockies team that's an absolutely different force of nature for people to go after. So what does this mean? Should the Rockies stick with CJ Cron as they continue to sit at the bottom of the NLS, not in the basement anymore after they took down the Giants, not the Giants, the Diamondbacks in the series? Actually, they are in the basement after last night's game. They're back down there. They're at 35 and 45 with the Diamondbacks above at 36 and 44. So the Rockies back in the cellar of the NL West. Is it worth keeping CJ Cron? Are you that certain with your lineup, with your roster construction, that it's worth it for the team to make a splash with with the deal that you have in place with CJ Cron? Is it worth it to stay there when obviously this is the year that you could get a nice haul for CJ Cron? Now, I'll probably dive in more into specific trades and pieces, but just think big picture. What team isn't going to want someone that plays a pretty good defensive first base on top of a monster when it comes to offense? In his last 7 games, CJ Cron is batting .323, .367, .679 with 12 RBIs, 3 home runs, and 9 hits. 4 runs. He's got the 6 strikeouts, but he's been a monster. He's been an absolute monster. 3 home runs in the past 48 hours. he is someone that it would be a massive, massive contributor to another team. He came to Colorado and did it. He's played throughout baseball. He's played across the league. So it's not going to be course field, blah, blah, blah. There's going to be people that would be very interested in what CJ Cron can do to teams. And you can actually replenish some of this farm system stuff, especially when you have CJ Cron's replacement called up right now, at least according to some of the plans. What Montero's role is going to be when he actually is an everyday player is yet to be seen. But the idea is for Montero to get over there at first base. If we're going to dive into the farm system this week with Locked On, with Lindsey Crosby over there, Locked On MLB Prospects. But you could just commit to your if you know where the season's going, if you don't feel confident, you could replenish the farm and then trust some of these younger guys to call up. But I really don't think the Rockies are going to do that here. Joel in the live chat says, Cron has been a ridiculously huge impact. It's one of the best signings they've ever made. I really want them to stick with Cron in the long run. And I think when push comes to shove, I think the Rockies won't move on from CJ Cron. I think they aren't going to make they are going to believe that with Chris Bryant being back and some of the hopeful improvements they've kind of seen from some of their pitchers, that this is a team that can get back to competition, especially when you look at how the Rockies have performed against the NL West so far this year. The Rockies have played the Dodgers pretty well every game this season, and Kyle Freeland was working on something special last night until the one bad inning against a good team is going to happen. But again, is it worth it for is it worth it for CJ Cron to be as good as he is with the Rockies 10 games above 500 or below 500? Is it worth going for when you can have Montero come up and get everyday playing time and see what that means for him and see what he can contribute and go there? It might be a little too early to jump the ship, but let's be real. Not moving on from Trevor Story and John Gray at the trade deadline last year was a big mistake for the Rockies. In the big picture, the Rockies did not get better by holding on to Trevor Story and John Gray. It didn't help them change their fate at the end of the season, John Gray being the surprise departure, but the writing was on the wall from Trevor Story when Nolan Arenado was traded. So what truly is the point of committing to CJ Cron if you are 10 games below 500? Well, it is the fact that this team now finally has the two big offensive pieces that they want to contribute together. We have seen the impact of Chris Bryant on the lineup already. Chris Bryant already has 8 hits since his return from the IL. That is an impact. That does make it so Chris Bryant or that CJ Cron has some help there. But the Rockies need more. The Rockies have 2 people generating most of their offense. Let me see if I can find what I retweeted yesterday. Someone had some crazy percentage. Okay, from July 3rd. So this doesn't include last night's game. This is from Manny on MLB there. CJ Cron has hit 26% of the Rockies' homers this season. Cron and Charlie Blackmon have combined to hit 43% of the Rockies' home runs this season. The Rockies can't have nearly 50% of their home runs coming from just 2 guys. That just can't be how the Rockies work on offense. This team needs to start adding some more thump, and that could come from a rebuild. That could come from some moving pieces. Now the Rockies are getting resurgence and some interesting offensive impacts from your Jose Iglesias, for example, but big picture, are you really confident with the team that has the second hardest schedule remaining in baseball this season that it's worth keeping CJ Cron because the pair of CJ Cron with Chris Bryant and Connor Joe and Jonathan Daza is going to be enough to move that momentum forward and get them back in a position where they could be in a wild card spot? I just think that timeline, that sliver is so small this year. And it's another what if, what if CJ Cron regresses next year? What if CJ Cron takes a step back? It's not the end of the world because CJ Cron's contract isn't huge. Plus, he's shown that he has the ability to thump the ball. He's gonna have that power. But what if you could beef up your bullpen and get a nice little piece that you could extend, and or what if you could really beef up a good chunk of your farm system and get 3 prospects for a Cron barred package? Turn to some of your younger bullpen options. Turn to some of these arms that you want to see about as well. It's an interesting dilemma for the Rockies, and one that, if they weren't 10 games below 500, I would be more hesitant, because I would say that this team it would just be underperforming at that level. And let me dive into what I mean by that. But first, I got to tell you about our sponsors today, and that includes Blue Nile. At BlueNile.com, they want to help you celebrate all of life's special moments, from creating the custom engagement ring of their dreams to gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at your traditional jeweler. When you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as your favorite person with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft the perfect engagement ring, and each ring is one of a kind, just like your favorite person. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing, just like this podcast host would? Well, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7 on the phone or in the chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Rockies listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. We're talking CJ Cron. I'm talking, is keeping CJ Cron the right idea? Should the Rockies move on? Is it worth hanging on to CJ Cron at 10 games below 500? It doesn't get any easier. But it's if the Rockies trade CJ Cron, it's finally a sign that this front office is going to embrace, they won't say rebuild, but they at least will be looking at the realities of the season. And again, for the Rockies to get into a wild card position, being 10 games below 500 and also in the second hardest schedule of this of the year, that mountain is huge, and that reality has to be talked about in the front office of the Colorado Rockies. However, CJ Cron single-handedly beat one of your NL West rivals. CJ Cron has done something that a first baseman hasn't done since the early 2000s for the Colorado Rockies. CJ Cron has proven to be a valuable asset for some of these players and can continue to help some of your prospects, especially Montero, grow. You're going to tell me that Montero won't benefit from private specialized instruction from Todd Helton, and then while being at the major league level, he gets to work with CJ Cron, and that's not going to be of benefit to him, at least on his preparation and that side of the game. Obviously, that's stuff that isn't always going to transfer over into the game, but players like CJ Cron are also the types you want around in a quote unquote rebuild, in a situation where you're bringing in and trying new things and going in a new direction with some of your younger players. The issue there is Chris Bryant was supposed to fill that role. You have Charlie Blackmon to fill that role. In reality, the best thing for the Rockies to do is to trade CJ Cron. I really don't want them to, especially because we will see an impact on the Rockies offense, but the writing is on the wall of this season. And the farm system needs help. The team needs new arms in the bullpen. The team is lacking in other areas. And right now, is it worth holding on to finally getting that production from that position that's eluded you for so long? Or is it worth it to give Montero the everyday at bats, get a haul for CJ Cron, and probably I would have, again, we'll be keeping the trade discussions are going to continue here on Locked On Rockies. CJ Cron won't be the only person we're talking about, but the Rockies actually, again, are in a situation where they have enticing trade pieces. But as Joel points out in the live chat, our farm system needs help, but that only works if the front office actually accepts rebuilding, and this team isn't going to do that. They don't like to say that. They don't want to do that. You don't go and spend that money on Chris Bryant if you're going to rebuild. This is a team that thinks that they're closer than they might be. I mean, the third wild card is always going to be an interesting wrinkle for the Rockies. The Rockies are a team that is definitely going to benefit from that third wild card throughout their history. But again, the realities of this season right now for the Colorado Rockies, you are 10 games below 500. You are 15 and a half games back from the Dodgers at the top of the division. In the National League wildcard race, let's get that going up here for right now. In the National League, Atlanta, San Diego, and St. Louis are all leading the wild card race at 47 wins, 47 wins, and 44 wins for St. Louis. Philly, San Francisco, and Miami, and Arizona all in front of the Rockies. Now, 9 games back of that third wild card is not out of the question. It's not, but it's coming at it's going to be against the best. But the benefit of that is if the Rockies continue to beat their division, if the Rockies can hang on in the division every single time at this point, the Rockies beat the Padres and the Giants and the Diamondbacks, that helps them in the wild card standings. Obviously, the Dodgers, it helps them too. But again, I'm just kind of comparing your direct one-to-one. Every single time the Rockies beat the Diamondbacks, they are one step closer. They are it's a one step forward for the Rockies, one step back for the D-backs, obviously. And CJ Cron is going to be instrumental in any run that the Rockies have towards gaining this ground here. With Chris Bryant actually are going to be, is now looks healthy, is been playing consistently. There's no worries from the front office and management of the team. Is that tandem mixed with your Connor Joe, your Charlie Blackmon, who's been swinging a good bat this year? Is that going to be enough to take enough series from the Diamondbacks and the Giants and the Padres while also gaining ground on these NL East teams that you've already lost to? Miami, you've already missed your chance to gain ground on. Atlanta, you've missed your chances to gain ground on. And Philly, you did all right with the exception of some stuff. Pittsburgh nipping at the heels. But again, all these teams that are above the Rockies, they are in the hunt and much closer to 500 than the Colorado Rockies, with the exception being the D-backs. The Rockies have yet to put together a stretch of consistent winning baseball that makes you think that they're going to win this game. When was the last time the Rockies won 3 games in a row? I don't think they've done it since the beginning of the season. And Joel, another good point here. The Rocks are basically going to play spoiler this year. You're only 2 games back from the wild card. It'd be a shame if you lost a random series, but it's important. The Padres can't afford to lose to the Rockies like they have been historically losing to the Rockies. Those games are massive, but the Rockies can't lose in back-to-back series to the Nationals and the Pirates and think that's going to happen. The only benefit, if the Rockies find themselves in that wild card hunt, they've done it against good teams and they're beating the bad teams that they've struggled with. The Rockies have to put together the good, consistent stretch of baseball for them to get into it, and you're running out of time to do so. And when you get to the trade deadline, you're going to have to make the realistic decision of, here we are. We are past halfway through the season. We know what the impact of having Chris Bryant in the lineup every day with this roster construction is, because CJ Cron will not be traded until the deadline. I can promise you that. If he is traded, it's a deadline day deal for sure. For sure. The Rockies have got to figure out and see what the long-term impacts of Chris Bryant means for this lineup. So the right momentum could come. CJ Cron could be the key piece that keeps you going. I mean, he like we said, 24% of the Rockies' home runs. It's probably a little bit more of that now that he put one out of the yard yesterday. He's responsible probably for maybe even closer to a quarter of the Rockies' home runs. He's done something for a Rockies first baseman hasn't done since the 2000s. There's a great argument on both sides, but you have to be realistic when you're a Rockies fan and with the Rockies front office. So at this point, the jury's still out, I think, on actually what they'll do. The Rockies record and the Rockies pace going into the trade deadline, that will be the discussion. But what we can put right here, it's looking with little to no doubt that CJ Cron is going to be your Colorado Rockies representative in the All-Star game. I think we can safely say that that CJ Cron will be in the All-Star game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they might ask him to be in the home run derby. But I can see Cron being one of those. I'm not going to do the derby because I'm worried about my swing type of guys. The Rockies are let's see. 5-5 in their last 10 games. They've been playing, they've won some good series. They've had a good homestand. What does this mean going forward? I don't know. It's tough because it is. How much do you want to buy into this year? And what you do with CJ Cron, it decides that. That was a weird way to end that segment. I don't really know how I even landed the plane that way. Anyway, let's look even more in the now. Let's look at tonight's matchup. Talk a little bit about last night as well. As the Rockies, it was a frustrating loss, but you love to see that late surge and just that one bad inning, which seems to be most of Kyle Freeland's career, I feel like we are always talking about. But before we do that, I got to tell you about another one of our great sponsors, and that's Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com in the office, at home, and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto and save 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. Go check out their easy-to-use website today and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Diving into the live chat here, Nick Tolan says, man, seeing KB in the lineup has been a breath of fresh air. It is a breath of fresh air. It is. Chris Bryant, there's still, the jury's still out, obviously, on a lot of the signings, and looking at, I'm not going to lie, Nolan Arenado's numbers continue this year, especially continue to bring me great pain, but he's been effective, and it is a really nice impact on the lineup. And it makes the approach to the Rockies different, and it does add depth that the Rockies haven't had since April, which is massive, especially when we're at the point where we're seeing what we're getting from some of our other producers, Connor Joes or Jonathan Daz's, Charlie Blackmon. I mean, it's nice. And CJ Cron, of course, those are some interesting, so Chris Bryant makes all those players better. Chris Bryant makes the offense better because it adds that layer of depth that the Rockies didn't have. He just needs to hit that dang ball out of the yard. Chris Bryant has to start hitting home runs. We need some home runs. The Rockies in general need to hit more home runs. I know in the offseason we talked a lot about doubles, and doubles are good. We've seen the impact of some of that, but now the Rockies are clearly reeling from the fact that they are not a team that is going there. And again, Nick, you point out a good point too. Someone I haven't talked about, we haven't talked about enough, who honestly, if would be a really strong candidate for an all-star, because I think it's important to focus on how a part of an all-star is that turnaround, or how do you handle adversity in Brendan Rodgers as well. It's huge. It's Chris Bryant being in the lineup does make CJ Cron better. It makes everyone in that Rockies lineup better, because it adds the depth that the Rockies haven't had in some of these series. And it would be really interesting to see what it would have been like for those games when the Rockies got a bunch of runners on and things of that nature, and we're missing a clutch bat. I'm really hoping Chris Bryant can do that, both by just his weird singles that somehow always land, but also by finally getting into hitting the long ball. Joel says, I know I'm being greedy, but I'd want a lights out prospect like Francisco Alvarez from the Mets or Daniel Espino from the Guardians. It's not crazy. If you're going to, I think the Rockies' best way to get the most out of their players at the deadline is a package deal. And I don't think it's that crazy for a team to go for a nice deal of Cron and Bard if in a package deal for Alvarez or Espino. I'm gonna talk to some people, because we're gonna dive into some potential trades. I want to do a who should the Rockies trade for? And I'd love for, if you are out there listening here, whether if you're in the live show or if you're listening on your favorite streaming service or catching it on YouTube, drop a comment, hit me up on Twitter. Tell me the trades that you want the Rockies to go for. And I'd love to reach out to the other Locked On hosts and see what they think about it and maybe do some analysis there. So if you got some trades that you think would work for the Rockies, who you think the Rockies should move on or go after, we'd love to hear about it here. We're going to keep staying in the live chat before I do my brief little pregame analysis here. Nick says, B-Rod would absolutely be talked about more nationally if he didn't have that bad April. So happy he's shown he will be a great player for the future. I've always loved Brendan Rodgers. I've always been is someone I'm very excited to watch, and his contributions to this team have been stellar. And you can tell him getting better has helped players like Ryan McMahon getting better. Those two now are confident in their defense. They're confident in their play. Ryan McMahon, I'm hoping more with the offense, but we have the clearly Ryan McMahon is feeling better about his defense right now. And I do wonder if seeing Brendan Rodgers bounce back from his struggles and going through that has an impact there. I know it's not apples to oranges, but it could be. And I think those obviously two players that would spend a lot of the time together at one point, with McMahon being the former second baseman, with those two being in the middle of the infield here. Nick Tullen in the live chat says, not for Cron, but I want Gallo on this team. A lefty power bat, maybe could get a resurgence at Coors. Probably a crazy thought, but I don't know. It is interesting. Gallo, it was a big move there. Can they bring back? It's just, are the Rockies going to go after another big name like that? And what would that cost in terms of just the name tag price alone? All right, let's dive into tonight's game here. Rockies taking on the Dodgers in game 2 of the series. Man, Kyle Freeland was dealing up until the 5th inning there, where the Dodgers did just about all of their damage from one big home run. He was motoring perfect all the way up. Unfortunately, it all falls apart. And that's baseball, and that just shows kind of how good the Dodgers are. Again, you don't hate Freeland's line at the same time. It's a little too much. Obviously, it's the big runs. It was the big fly, but 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. You wish you could go a little deeper in the game, but frustration and things kind of got the best of him after that home run. But it is I'm Kyle Freeland. I have been enjoying his pitching this year. It just seems like, man, just one bad inning, one bad drop, one missed play, one booted ball. That's just been something we've said with so many Kyle Freeland starts this year. And honestly, I think in his career. But the Rockies coming alive late in that game last night, too, was great to see, especially CJ Cron and Charlie Blackmon coming up and getting that nice little pinch hit to get in there, and a tough AB there for Connor Joe as strikes out with potential winning runs on the bases. But it was a close one. Rockies showing some life there, at least at the end. Okay, let's take a look here tonight as the Rockies are going up against the Dodgers again. Like we said, German Marquez on the bump, I believe, is cut finger is not going to be an issue for the team today, or we hope. I mean, it's kind of interesting how just one cut on a finger and how drastic that could be for your team. I mean, and especially if you are a pitcher. I mean, it's a finicky sport, and some people probably are like, oh, it's a cut finger. What does that even got to do with anything? But it's very important there for the the Rockies. But yes, Marquez is the scheduled starter for tonight. And then Ryan Pepiot, I don't know, up here for the Rockies, for the Dodgers tonight, 0-0, 3.18 ERA with 13 Ks. No one on the Rockies has seen this arm for the guy that I butchered the last name pronouncing. It's hey, Rockies in a position that if they can steal this one, if this is exactly again how it should be drawn up. You know, Marquez is on the bump. You got Chris Bryant back in the lineup. CJ Cron's been hitting home runs. They have that late thing. Will it happen? You got to put it all together, because it would be really, really great to get, if you split the series here, get yourself in another situation to win a series with the Dodgers. That's awesome. I really think this is a nice kind of, again, keep fighting, keep pushing. If you want to keep changing, if you want to change this series, the narrative of this season, you got to win games like tonight. Here, it's important. Marquez needs a bounce back. The Rockies offense needs a bounce back. They got a person they haven't seen before. This is a type of win that can help, again, keep things moving in the right direction. Move from 500 in your last 10 games to a game above 500 in your last 10 games. Keep moving the needle above 500 in any category you can, whether that be series wins against the your season series against the Dodgers, season series against the division. Keep moving up closer to 500 and above. One more comment here from the live chat. Joel DeGrace, Freeland was looking amazing until he got knocked out of his groove. Domino effect took over, and yep, that happens, man. Baseball is brutal. It's something that you just got to throw your hands up sometimes, and it's a reflection of how good that Dodgers team is. When you think you got them on their heels, when you think they got them beat, bam, what do? Huge 3-run home run, puts themselves right back into this game and puts them in a massive inning. And the Rockies got to avoid that if they want to get the win and get themselves back in a situation to win the series tonight. Well, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. We had a great live chat, and we had a great show today. Hopefully, the Rockies get back in the win column tonight as well. We'll be breaking things down right here on Locked On Rockies all the time, so make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube and you are following us on Twitter. And if you're on that YouTube sub, then you can join in on the live chat just like Nick and Joel did today. Hey, now that you've checked out Locked On Rockies, go check out the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast, and go check out the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets podcast to keep you up to date with all things Colorado sports. Thank you so much for listening to us again. I'm Paul Holden. You can find me at Paul Holden 33. And until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies.